parents are taking the correct precautions to ensure our children's and families' health and safety are priority. And without any further ado, I will leave the floor to Ms. Lourdes, and she will be able to discuss more of this discussion that we're going to do today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lourdes Gibaud, and I am here to introduce to you our guest for tonight. Senator Sepúlveda was first elected to represent the 32 Senate district in April of 2018. His diverse district covers large parts of the South and Central Bronx. He previously served for 3 terms as the Assemblyman for the 87th Assembly District. A staunch advocate for his constituents and the people of the state of New York, Senator Sepúlveda has been a champion of bolstering economic opportunity, diversity, and social service reforms, especially as they affect middle and working class families. Senator Sepúlveda has become a recognized leader in Albany as an advocate for immigrant rights in New York, as the lead sponsor of 2 of the state's most impactful and historic immigration bill, the New York State Jose Peralta Dream Act and the Green Light Bill, which respectively expanded access to higher education and driver's license for undocumented immigrants. As a representative of one of the lowest income districts in the state, and with an unwavering commitment to improving the lives of his constituents, Senator Sepúlveda is deeply engaged in his community in creating opportunities for educational and economic justice. His district's office top priority is to provide reliable, excellent, and unrivaled constituent service on issues including housing, healthcare, social services, and more. He regularly hosts free workshops, job fairs, and resource fairs in the community. So without further ado, that I pass the floor to our guest of the night, Senator Luis R. Sepúlveda. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this presentation. It's very important for me to make sure that we provide the safest environment for our children to be able to go to school. You know, I have a 10-year-old child, and that's extremely important to me. So I'm sure that everyone here and all the parents are seriously concerned about the developments that we've had. Now, thanks to the New York City, the Coalition for Educating Families Together, I want to thank you for putting this together. You know, COVID has completely changed life as we know it. Now, for the past year, my office has worked on ensuring that we vaccinate appointments for all persons from the Bronx, including 12-year-olds when they become eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. To date, we developed a program early on when vaccinations started, where we've been able to directly help vaccinate over 1,500 people in this community. Now, we understand that children under 12 cannot be vaccinated, but I plan on continuing this program that we created so that we can get as many kids vaccinated when the time comes. You know, I have some concerns. Schools aren't able to safely create a social distance for their students. They can't guarantee prolonged mask wearing, which could be difficult, especially for young children. Children who are immunocompromised risk severe dangers if they contact COVID. For this reason, I support and have co-sponsored Senate Bill 7381 by Senator John Liu, which requires any public school located in New York City to provide a remote learning option when the community transmission of COVID is substantial or a high level. During these troubled times, there should be no other option than to keep our children and our teachers safe. So you have my support with that endeavor. I will continue to work to make a safe environment. And on a side note, I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to my office. We created something called the Workforce Diversification Project, where we are connecting people with jobs in real time. You send us your resume, and you know, it's been a brief program that we created, but it's been very successful. If anyone you know wants a job, wants training, wants a scholarship, grants, things like that, we are working with this diversification program to make sure that people get really good jobs. Thank you all, and let's start the process.
I'm so sorry, I'm muted. Thank you for that, Senator. And now we are glad that you mentioned the fact that you are supporting or you're co-sponsoring the bill with Senator Lou, because we have Angela who will be talking about some of the health concerns that we are facing in the school buildings presently. Angela?
Hi, thank you, Senator Sepúlveda. It's a pleasure to speak on this topic with you, and thank you for giving us the time. Spread within the school environment, health and safety are at the helm as a central concern for parents of New York City students. Given that no remote option was provided, several parents have chosen to keep their kids at home precisely due to their concerns of the rising Delta variant infection rates in New York City, that those could spread to their most precious people, their little people in their life, their children. Now, let's not forget, the Bronx has had the highest rates of impact. And so we know fully well what it is to experience this, especially given the fact that we have a lot of multi-generational families. And so we need to make sure that we are protecting our children, our greatest treasures. Unlike earlier versions of the COVID, one thing was very clear as we approached school reopening. This Delta variant was highly contagious, and the kids were not exempt from its wrath. Rather than providing a remote option or having kids and staff members tested upon entry into the school year, the Department of Education took a wait-and-see approach and saw that their policies needed to be adjusted in order to mitigate the spread of COVID within classrooms. When school began, testing was confined to 10% of all students whose parents signed the consent forms, which proved to be a very small part of the overall population. With quarantining rules in place, many classroom closures occurred, and the DOE reported dozens of cases among staff and a handful of students prior to even the first day of school. By September 29th, more than 2,800 students and staff received a positive COVID test, and the DOE responded with a change to testing from a biweekly testing of 10% of that small population, okay, only those who signed those consent forms, to a weekly testing of all students of parents who signed the consent forms. The policy for testing as well as for quarantining rules changed from the start of the school year until now, precisely because the staff and kids were getting exposed. But this is still not enough, and the change to the quarantine rules actually have made exposure more likely. I want to talk about the fact that if you were to go and enter into these classrooms, you will see that kids are unable to have the mask on properly. They are not able to be socially distant, and we have a lot of kids one on top of another. This is what has kept many parents from sending their kids in. And so I just want to go through a few facts, and then, so facts are as follows. By September 29th, 629 classrooms were partially closed and 475 were completely closed. So what I want to share is this. Since we are not able to have socially distanced classrooms outdoors or anywhere, and the classroom closures are now being limited only because of this new policy, we need to now make a change and make sure that safety and health are our biggest priority, because our kids are counting on us to be their voice, and we ask that you partner with us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much for that, Angela. Senator, you do have about a minute or so to respond. If you want, or we can continue.
I have made it a point the last few months to visit the schools in my district, and some of the things that Angela mentioned, I have seen myself with some grave concern. We all know it's impossible to keep children, young children, masked and set away from each other. It's just not natural for children to want to create social distance. They're social little beings naturally. So I know that some of the concerns you have, Angela, are legitimate, and are concerns that I have for all of the kids in my district. So, I've been speaking with the DOE, with the chancellor, to see how I can mitigate some of this stuff. But that's such a monstrous bureaucracy that sometimes you can't get action in real time. But what I do promise you is that I'm going to continue to push to get that option and make sure that our kids are safe.
Thank you so much for that, Senator. And now you will hear from a student, Valentia Ferguson. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Senator Sepúlveda. Thank you for joining us. My experience with in-person learning was very scary because the rules that we were supposed to be following weren't getting listened to. For example, kids wearing masks and people distancing. For one reason is when people would not social distance and be less than 3 feet than the actual distance, or like when people would not wear their mask and sneeze and cough instead of sneezing in their in their shoulders or elbows, or even in their sleeve. Everyone in classes wouldn't sit like far distance from each other because the way how desks are placed. Can you please make class sizes smaller to
Are you okay, Valencia? Did we lose her?
She's muted, I believe.
Yeah, Valencia, you're muted. You're doing great.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. I'm so sorry. To elevate spread of COVID and flu. It will also often. After being homesick for almost 2 weeks, I will feel more comfortable with the smaller class size setting.
Thank you, Valencia. I agree with you 100%. 100%. The smaller the class, the safer it is. I'm sorry you went through some of those experiences, because I'm pretty sure it must be scary to be sitting or standing next to someone who's sneezing without covering their mouth properly. That's a recipe for spreading the virus relatively quickly.
Thank
So
you.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to do everything I can again to make you safer.
Thank you for that, Senator. And now we have a parent, Alicia Hamad Anif, who will speak on the fact that the DOE is weaponizing ACS against parents.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Senator Sepúlveda, for joining us. I am a parent of 2 New York City school students. I have chosen not to send my children for in-person school this year. I am one of the many parents asking for a remote learning option for my children. I have spoken to both of my children's school and requested that they be provided with work at home. And while the schools have been accommodating to a certain extent, we have kept the lines of communication open. As of last week, I received a call from District 27 in Queens, which is a district I am part of, stating that my youngest, who is in pre-K, would be unenrolled and that her absences would result in an ACS case due to educational neglect. Even though her school has been providing me with work and we have been returning the work on a weekly basis, the person that called me from District 27 was unaware that my child was receiving work from school and completing it within the time frame given. Neither schools were contacted by District 27 before they made the phone call to me, so they were unaware that my children were receiving work and that it does not qualify as educational neglect because they are returning the work as the teacher set the time frame for them to return it. But I was still told by District 27 that because of their absences, that an ACS case would be opened because they were not in school. I explained to the person at District 27 that I am not sending my children in because of the safety measures. So, and as per DOE, they said ACS would not be weaponized against parents that are keeping their children home for their health and safety. And with over 3,000 cases in 3 weeks and the shrinking safety measures weekly and the bare minimum of testing in the school community, it is within my right as a parent to protect my children and keep them safe from illness that can be prevented if a remote learning option was available. Many parents are being forced to send their children into the unsafe school buildings because they're being threatened with ACS if they keep their children home. Parents that have kept their children home are facing these threats from not only the district, but also from the school attendance offices. I'm asking for you to do everything in your power to make these threats stop. And if possible, if a code could be developed to excuse these absences so they don't count against the children that are being kept home for their safety and health. Schools have been proven in the past 3 weeks to be unsafe. And now with the teacher shortage, it has become even more unsafe. I thank you for your time and effort that you have put towards helping us.
Well, I will do this. I will reach out to the chancellor directly to see what this policy is about. I will reach out to ACS to see why there's this disconnect, and see if even maybe through legislative fiat, I can help the situation by making sure that we tailor legislation to protect parents who do not feel safe with their children in a school environment. No parent should feel like there is some issue with their parenting skills or their custodial rights as parents under the threat of ACS, because what they're doing is they believe is keeping their children safe. So we will look into that. I was unaware that ACS was conducting business this way, but certainly anyone on this call who needs assistance with that, you can either call me or your local elected official. If you're in Queens, you should reach out to Senator John Liu, who is the chair of the New York City Education Committee, someone who has a lot of say in development of those policies. Or you can reach out to your local city council person, because the city council has more direct workings with the DOE. But for me, I don't care if it's city council or not, or it's a city issue, I will always advocate for my parents or anyone else. You don't have to live in my district. I have an obligation to represent everyone in the state. So you see you have a problem with that, please let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you, because Alicia actually has a letter that she can share that she received today, and I was shocked to see that. So thank you for that, Alicia, and thank you for that, Senator. And we'll have now Amy Tsai to discuss transportation chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Senator. My name is Amy Tsai. I am a mom of 5 here in the Bronx. I am also a CC member for our citywide council for our District 75 special needs community. Today, I'm going to touch on school bus transportation. As we know, with today is the start of the beginning of shortage staff in our school buildings. We also have a shortage nationally wide and also in New York City for a shortage of bus drivers, matrons, bus paras, and bus nurses. There's over 150,000 students who ride the bus every single school year. 80,000 of them are special needs with IEP accommodations. 26,000 of them are in District 75 citywide program throughout all 5 boroughs. And all these children ask for equity, access, and quality, just like they're in their school building. And the access is for their education to be in the building. But as we know, through the last 2 years since we've been in this pandemic, there's been a huge furlough, national-wide and citywide, that we don't have enough people to make sure that our children are on the bus, are safe and healthy, going to school from home and to whatever necessary places they need, after school programs, health caregiver programs. So a lot of our children in this 4th week of school are still not receiving a bus route, still do not have a bus route with a para 1-to-1. And that is due to the fear a lot of our staff members don't want to be in. They don't want to go home in contact with somebody who has COVID and bring it to their home and bring it to their grandparents or their parents or extended family who lives with them. And so due to that, a lot of our students are sitting home right now. And this is not, any new stuff that we've been dealing with. Every single year prior to the pandemic, we've suffered through, shortages of routes and issues. Just for example, first day of school, we had students that were dropped off the wrong school because these are brand new bus companies that had drivers and matrons that never served special needs community, never served in New York City, and that were put on the contract literally just a Friday before school started. And these are $1.2 billion contracts. So I asked that these are IDA and ADA acts, and as well as free appropriate public school education act that supports our students for access of education. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Sai. First of all, I want to commend you for raising 5 children. It's quite an accomplishment. So congratulations. And I'm glad that you're on the CEC because essentially you have, where in the Bronx do you reside? I'm sorry to ask.
I'm in Norwood.
You're in Norwood. Okay. The problem with bus companies, as you indicated, has been problematic for years now. I know the owner of a particular bus company that works with the city. And he says that part of the problem with the city is that they're not the most efficient in terms of releasing lists and information on where the kids are going to be picked up. And they're even worse when it comes to reimbursing the bus companies for the services they provide. It's been a problem for several years. We have a new chancellor coming in. I'm not sure how things are going to be different with the new chancellor, but certainly an area that they have to focus is on the issue of transportation, because that's been a problem for a long time. And so, as part of this discussion, a lot of the things that all of you are telling me now, I plan to raise that with the appropriate individuals at the DOE and beyond the DOE. The transportation issue, we know with COVID, it's a problem. We anticipated shortages, so it made a bad situation worse. But again, I will look into that and see what I can do to make the situation better.
I just wanted to raise that, a lot of the bigger picture is there's not enough staff, right? And New York State had offered, the governor herself has offered National Guard to drive these buses in the state. But meanwhile, in the city right now, Kevin Moreau, who's the operations of Department of Education, said, we have no problem. We have no shortage. And this is just a disguise to tell us that our problems as parents is not a 311 call, that we're speaking to deaf ears right now because we have children who are still at home. And this is not a choice. This is something that they need. Their parents are essential workers, they're healthcare providers. They themselves are parents in these schools. And if the parents can't attend these schools, and just because we're in a shortage of staff, their own children cannot have the instruction and the related services that need. And this is a related services for students with IEP. Mm-hmm. And so this is something, as you said, been decades, like even my 16-year-old who rode the bus since he was 18 months. This is very personal to me, but also the people that I serve, the 150,000 students who are in temporary housing, students who are in foster care, students who are in wheelchairs. These are the most vulnerable children who do need these related services to get an access to school. And that's when we call equity, access, and quality are not served for these students.
Thank you so much, Amy. Guys, let's respect the time allotted to us. And if need be, since the senator has agreed to stay a little bit after 7, he can take questions from the chat and we can have additional conversations. Thank you. And I appreciate what your concern, Amy, because it is a serious issue. And now we will have, I believe, Jennifer, yes, speak on how insufficient home instruction is. Thank you, Jennifer.
Can you believe that? Right? Can somebody get the phone, please? I'm so sorry. Oh my God! It literally rang.
You predicted it.
Yo, this better be important.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Jennifer. Do you need us to come back to you?
Oh no, okay. Never mind. My husband got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, hello, Senator.
Hello.
Thank you for your time this evening. Hopefully our stories will inspire you when you go back to Albany and you'll share them in this fight for a remote learning option, which we certainly appreciate your advocacy in. Since our last meeting a few weeks ago, unfortunately, the situation here has gotten more dire. As you may remember, my son August is 10 years old. He has severe asthma and an overactive immune system disorder. He's not eligible for the vaccine, and he can't get monoclonal antibodies if he should contract it. He's been home since March 2020 because of this. His pediatrician advised he stayed home because he was at serious risk for a COVID infection. So in the absence of a remote learning option, we kept him home and applied for the medically necessary instruction program. The mayor and chancellor have touted this program as being a safe, viable alternative for medically fragile students. Unfortunately, when they talk about this program, they are lying by omission because they conveniently leave out the end of the sentence that it says, yes, medically fragile students can get remote learning. However, it's for 1 hour per day for elementary age and 2 hours per day for high school and middle school. They also said that they were going to serve 3,000 to 5,000 students in this program, but as we learned from the Chalkbeat article that came out on Friday of last week, my son is one of 300 who have been accepted thus far. Before he was accepted last week, my son received no formal education the first week of school, besides 2 workbooks that were kindly provided by his school, and he's been locked out of his DOE account, and every attempt to reach the DOE has failed. So things haven't improved. I asked if my son could receive more time, and I was told by this very kind teacher that unfortunately, per the DOE, everybody's limited to 1 hour. This to me is the first time, this is the first time my son has experienced learning loss since the pandemic began. He did very well in remote. He exceeded standards. He ended up reading 2 grade levels ahead of his class. He was a totally different student than he was in person pre-pandemic, when he was, gifted but distracted in class. So all of these accomplishments that we've achieved in the past 15 months are at risk right now. There's no way my son can learn what his peers are learning in 1 hour per day. So, to recap, the mayor has refused to provide remote to the 70% of parents who opted for it. He's refused to provide to the 79% of parents who now want it. And he's failing to provide it to the medically fragile students that he says are going to get it. So it's up to us to pay for online classes to keep him up and on pace for when he returns. This is a hardship, but I don't mind paying it because I can't make up for a loss of health. I can make up for a loss of education, right? It was the mayor making me choose between my child's health and his education was not a hard decision. But what is hard is watching a child who wants to learn but can't. So I recognize that the city is just following orders from a chancellor's regulation at the New York State level that mandates this 1 hour per day of instruction for medically fragile students, but it is the mayor's decision to not offer more, despite the fact that he has federal funding for this, despite the fact that people are asking for it and he has promised it. So I beg you, I know you're doing it, but I'm just imploring all your colleagues, please call an emergency session, get this bill on the floor, let's get a vote, let's take care of this, because clearly nothing's going to happen here without your intervention and your support. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. A reminder, guys, that we have to stick to the time that was allotted to us. Otherwise, it becomes very disorderly and we can't have that. And next, we'll have Shana Blue, who will speak on sanitation in the buildings. Go ahead, Shana, take it away. Let me not,
Thank you, Farah. Great evening, Senator and my peers. I would like to thank you for taking this time out tonight to sit at the round table with us, as many haven't yet. My name is Shauna Blue Marsh, and I'm a former Parents Association president and SLT member. I'm a mother of 4. I'm here in the Bronx, but I have 2 children that is in the school system at the moment. My concerns are not just for my family and my children, but for all the children and the families that are going through this situation as we are right now. I would like to speak on the topic of sanitation of the building and overcrowding of the classroom. The schools are not telling parents the truth about what's going on in the school. We are only able to drop them off and pick them up and see things from a different view. My daughter, her first day of school was last week. She did not start school when everyone else did. The first week of school, what I did was I went to the school building and I watched how, they were taking the children and how dismissal was. Now, the first thing that I noticed when it was drop-off time in the morning time is that you stood on a line for over an hour to get your children in the school building to give them to the teachers.
What school is this, Shauna? Shauna, what school?
Bronx Delta.
Bronx Delta, okay.
After you stood online to give your child to the teachers, parents were asking questions about what was going to happen once the children get in the building, as far as were they going to get their temperatures checked. Some people were actually trying to answer questions and some teachers weren't. It was like a real dismissive drop-off for parents. There were parents there upset, cursing, aggravated, because they just didn't know what was going to happen once their child went into the building. I stood around for maybe 30 to 40 minutes later, and I watched a teacher bring the children to the schoolyard. Now, my daughter is in the second grade, so these children had to be in the second grade. They brought the children out to the schoolyard and they sat them down on the floor, on the ground of the playground. And that's what really took me, because I didn't understand why were they sitting the children on the ground. That is not that's not sanitizing. That's not, healthy for the children. I asked my daughter when she went to school, what was it like? As far as she know, the children don't get an opportunity to wash their hands before lunch. They have to hand sanitize before they eat their lunch, and they are in the classroom doing so. They're eating lunch in the class without washing their hands first. As far as overcrowdedness, they're supposed to be, instead of the IEP classes having their 12 one-to-one, they're having 15 children to 20 children in the classroom, and it's not in the same school. This is the junior high school, the middle school, that is also in my daughter's building. There's 2 middle schools in my daughter's building. So in some of those classes, they have 15 to 20 children. That's supposed to be a 12 one-to-one. And this I got from someone who works there, who's aggravated with it being overcrowded, no 6 feet distance or 3 feet distance. Everyone is on top of each other. As of last week, I asked my daughter's teacher how many kids are in her class. Now, like I explained, my daughter's in the second grade. There's supposed to be at least up to 22 children in the class, or maybe 23. She told me right now she only has 20 children in the class because some children haven't come to school. Once all the children arrive to school, she'll have 28 kids in her class. In the junior high school, they're supposed to at least be maybe less than 30 kids, or maybe up to 32 children. This is not statistics. This is just, if you look at the CDC protocols and they're saying that you're supposed to be 3 feet away, how can you sit 33 people in a class spaced out? My time is up, but the only thing I wanted to say to you, Senator, behind that is I met you a couple of years ago at a legislation meeting, luncheon, and you took photos with me and you said to me, whenever you need me, call me. Today, I'm asking you to help us get the remote learning option back up on the table.
I commit to helping you. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. And for everyone in the chat or who's posing questions, we will try to get to your questions as quickly as we can. And now we will have Naquan McLean to talk about violence and safety issues in school buildings.
Thank you. Good evening, Senator. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'm Naquan McLean. I'm the president of CC16 in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. And I'm glad to be with my fellow parents tonight to talk about why we need a remote option. So if you know, for the within the last 8 days, there have been several incidents at Truman High School, from stabbings to someone hitting someone with a car. But I wanted to focus on this. One of the things that we've heard during the pandemic was how students that were not successful was really successful during remote because of them not being bullied or them not being people targeting them. And what we've seen is that our schools right now, people are emotionally disturbed right now. There's a lot of things happening and we need a remote option. We look at District 16 in Bed-Stuy, and I know that we're in the Bronx right now, but just the other day we had another young person killed. Last year, my nephew was killed. We have to make sure that we have the proper resources. And one resource that we know worked was remote learning. So I'm not sure why we're not pushing remote learning. Well, I'm sure why we're not, but it needs to be an option. So we come to you today. I can go on and on and on, but we have to look at the safety, and those are things that's reported. There are tons of things that are not reported that are happening in our schools, and we need to make sure that our students are safe. And one of the safest things to do is to keep them home with a remote learning option.
Thank you so much, Nakon. And Nakon is like, time, let me sum that up. Thank you so much. You're like saving the day with just being succinct. I'm sorry, Senator, did you want a chance to respond?
It's just, the more I hear, the more upset I'm getting about some of the things, especially when you say some things aren't even reported. And if this is what is being reported, I can imagine what's not being reported. So I'm listening, and I'm getting angrier by the minute, but again, I commit to working on these issues. I know we had Truman High School tragedy there, but certainly we have to make our schools safer. And we just have to have an overall environment where our kids can excel. And under the current situation, I don't see that happening.
Thank you so much, Senator. And now we will have, I believe, Thelma Ojeda and Heaven White, and Thaddeus Best. They're a family, and they will present on catching COVID in school, what it was like to catch COVID in school. Thank you, Thelma.
Hello, good evening all. My name is Thelma Ojeda. I'm a mom of 7. I am currently in Brooklyn. I have a young lady who started high school and one who just started junior high school. As of 10 days ago, about 10 days ago, my daughter was diagnosed with COVID. Prior to the diagnosis, she started having a mental health issue where I had to take her to the hospital. And this was related to her actually attending and going to school and being in close proximity with students who were not being monitored properly, and just overall feeling unsafe in the travel to the school. Not having Metro cards, it's a whole host of things that was going on that led up to her degeneration and her mental health. Took her to the hospital and found out that she had COVID on top of everything else. At this point, my daughter no longer wanted to live. She wanted to take her life. She did not want to go back to school. She struggled with this.
You gotta drive on
In attending, in trying to receive help in regards to all of this, none was given, none whatsoever. So we sit here struggling to get through day by day, to get my daughter some type of education, some type of something to move forward with her life, to motivate her to want to continue. With that being said, I would like to introduce my daughter, who was exposed to COVID while attending school. Heaven.
whoever you're talking to.
Okay. So my experiences of going back to school was very uncomfortable for me. Like so like during the time there, of course, like, you know, mentally I'm just like I'm having a bunch of anxiety and stuff like that going back to school. And no, it was very awkward, and the atmosphere was just very uncomfortable for me as I like the fact I was getting used to the remote option. And so now that's completely taken away. I have to, you know, being forced to be around a bunch of other people. And as someone who's very careful not to catch COVID because of like certain family members who really cannot get it, like my mom, it's upsetting that I caught it because I'm really careful and I have to, like, you know, be up under everyone. And it's like, you know, and because now that I'm stuck home and I'm sick and stuff like that, I'm being forced to go back to school because like the 10-day period is up and I'm really not feeling well. And if I had the remote option, I feel like I'd be able to, like, you know, still attend my classes without me having to miss instruction, because for like the past like couple of weeks, I haven't learned anything from, you know, school or whatever. So yeah.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Senator. My name is Thaddeus. I'm going to try and keep it brief and just reiterate everything that has been said. It's easy to just call me Sage. I am a professional gamer, actually. In regards to the facilities not being clean, the family member, one who's very antisocial, one who's very, very social, one catching COVID, the other one still remaining healthy. I'll let you guys guess who's who. I feel the most efficient method moving forward from this point is looking for hybridization. As a gamer, I am in contact with many people of the younger crowd, and I get a bit of a unique perspective in that regard, given my age. Children who would normally excel in the classroom tend to not do very well in the remote option, from what I've noticed. However, students that are relatively average or less than, you know, get easily distracted tend to excel very well doing the remote option. So I feel we should work towards looking for a common ground there. As far as bettering the situation in schools, I honestly don't have any insight in regards to that, but that's where I'll leave my little input here. Are we all golden? Stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to the Ojeda family.
Can I ask just Thelma one quick question? Thelma, was your daughter able to receive the resources she needed to help her with her mental health?
No.
Still no?
No.
Okay, where do you reside?
Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn?
East New York.
Thanks, Tina. There's a program that, you know, I'd like for you to look into called Life is Precious. So that you know that between the ages of 11 and 19, the #1 cause of death amongst young Latina women or young ladies is suicide. This program is geared to helping young women, young ladies, improve their mental health. So it's called Life is Precious. It's run by Dr. Rosa Gill. And I urge you to give them a call. If you want to call my office offline tomorrow, we can get you the information. But certainly you should look into that. You know, the whole issue of suicide is personal to me. My mother committed suicide when I was 11 years old. And so when I hear people, young children, are ideating about suicide, it's something that really strikes me directly, strikes my heart directly. So I would hate for her to go through that again. So if you have an opportunity, call Life is Precious. Thank you.
I will tell you this, Senator. I mean, since she's been home, And the hospital released her home because they wanted her to physically get well before they continue to address the mental health, because you know that when you're physically ill, it does affect you mentally. So they wanted to give her an option to be at home, to get well, get healthy, and then for us to then readdress the mental health issue. But since she's been home, she has been improving in that area. And you know, I'm crying on the inside, because I do know that if we did have that remote option, that would be such a blessing. It would be a wonderful thing for her to be able to still receive her education while dealing with, you know, her mental health issues. You know, the fight with getting home instruction or homeschooling or any kind of programs, it's an uphill battle. And I'm learning it because I'm going through the ropes presently and trying to get her the assistance that she needs. And the saddest option that was given to me was, yeah, well, let's put her in a program for children with behavioral health, where what they call them residential programs. Let's put her in a residential program. But if the one thing that she has that has her moving forward while she is home is her mom, then why not give mom the tools that she needs so that she can move forward, so that she can receive the education, where she doesn't have to lose her family? That would be more loss. How is that helpful?
No, you're absolutely 100% correct on that. Always good to be with your family when you have these issues of mental health. So stay strong, and if you want to consider life is precious, let us know.
Definitely, we're going to look into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thelma, and thank you so much, Senator. And now we will have Maria Guzman speak on how instruction is really not happening in the buildings. Thank you, Maria.
Just need to catch my breath after that last parent. As a parent, you know, I feel this really hard, especially as someone who's dealt with issues similar to what your daughter is going through. I'm very sorry. Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Professor Sepúlveda, Senator Sepúlveda. Thank you so much for.
It's okay, I used to be a college professor.
So am I, so that's like ingrained in my brain. Thank you, everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the inadequacy of instruction that's provided right now to in-class, in-person students by the DOE. So first of all, I want to ask the question, is the DOE currently providing a well-rounded education to students who are attending school in person? And the answer is not exactly. A well-rounded education is not limited to learning academic disciplines. It must include physical movement and the ability to explore as well. Even though many students might be receiving decent math, language arts, and other academic instruction, I know for a fact that some students are not receiving adequate opportunity to move around, play sports, explore, or discover. In fact, many elementary school kids spend the entire day inside their classrooms, learning there, eating there, and playing there if time and space allow. I'm keeping my daughter at home right now. I didn't send her to school, and this is what I'm learning from our teacher. Many do not have adequate access to gymnasiums, and many do not go outdoors at all until dismissal. Why is this happening? We are told that it's because of logistics. But the real problem is that the DOE did not plan this school reopening adequately, and now our kids are not receiving a well-rounded education. Does the DOE provide adequate space for students? In-person instruction must happen in a safe environment. Social distancing is an essential component of that, especially for kids who are too young to be vaccinated. We have all seen photos snapped by students and staff of overcrowded hallways, lunchrooms, and classrooms. Many schools are occupied well above their capacity. This situation is creating a lot of anxiety and concern, understandably so, for students and staff. Last year, our elementary school had 884 enrolled students. This year, we added 3K classes. How can all of these students, including the new 3K students, be accommodated while also providing adequate social distancing. Well, I don't think social distancing is adequate, and a lot of the staff and teachers agree. Reduced class size is not only something central to keeping our children safe, but also improving their learning outcomes and behavior. The City Council is considering legislation that would effectively reduce class size in our schools because years of research show that smaller class size leads to better learning. I think we all know that that's the case. Federal money that was allotted to create more social distancing by reducing class size was given to the mayor and his DOE, and yet it was not used to improve the situation for our students. There were already staff shortages at the beginning of this year, some due to the pandemic, some due to austerity measures and poor staff management. But now with the vaccine mandate for school staff in full effect, schools are finding themselves without key personnel, like experienced classroom teachers, paraprofessionals, coaches, safety officers, etc. This is further diminishing the quality of education our students are receiving. Remote learning option could have solved many of the problems addressed by me and others who spoke today. Class size could have been reduced, putting less strain on teachers, facilities, and other school resources. Vaccine hesitant teachers and those who have medical exemptions could still be using their skills and expertise to teach students, only remotely. Yes, we are in a pandemic and things are not great, but some of these are manufactured crises that could have easily been avoided if the DOE had the foresight to offer a remote option to families who need it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you as well, Maria. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you so much, Maria. And now we will have another student, Shelly Melendez, argue why she feels as a student we ought to have a remote option. Oh no, Shelly, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Go ahead, baby.
Hi. Good
Hi,
everyone. I'm Shelly. My name is Shelly Melendez. I'm 8 years old and I'm in 3rd grade. I go to PX62. I think remote learning is best because it helps keep safe while helping me learn. I don't want to be afraid to go to school.
And get sick.
And get sick.
And risk my family.
For my health. COVID
is
not over, and we kids should not
pay the price.
Pay the price.
Please
bring back remote learning.
thank you, Shelly.
Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, and thank you so much for that.
Okay, and now we will have Ms. Helen Hines, who will talk about political empowerment for parents and how we need your help on that.
Good evening, community and Senator Sepúlveda. It's a pleasure to be here. My heart goes out to everyone that's on the call and not on the call. I don't know how I can present with all that I've heard thus far, but I am going to do my due diligent best. But it was a lot to swallow and not have the tears to flow by listening to the parents. Senator, you have a lot of work ahead of you, but I'm sure you still have on your boots so you can handle it. Again, my name is Helen Hines. I'm a community leader, and I present to you the Voters Empowerment to Take Back the Ballot initiative by the ways of raising awareness on how important it is to vote in every race, and on every proposal. And just a quick reminder to talk about the census. When the census was going on, and the resident had lost really actually conscious on voting because of the fear of no one to listen to them. So the loss of hope and the fear of ICE put a damper on the census. So what happened, we end up losing a seat, which caused us to lose money from Washington, D.C. And as we know, we've already poverty stricken in our communities. So that's going to be a problem for us going forward. So coming up, we're going to have the voters of the general election by absentee ballot, early voting as 23rd and the 31st of October, and the general election on November the 2nd. I urge everyone to please vote. We will be mobilizing parents to return to voting on all races and asking them to flip the ballot to vote on the 5 proposals and the amendment which affect our lives every day. We can now share the screen for the 5 proposal. It will help. If we can just scroll through so folks can have an idea of what they are. We won't go through them, but truly folks need to know that they need to flip the ballot to vote. It's crucial that they vote because in another 8 years, things going to start happening. They're going to say, I don't remember voting on that, or they had no parts of it. So we're actually raising awareness now to keep us moving forward so that you can take part of it. Just scroll through all 5, and hopefully people will remember to flip their ballot and read on their own. Number 5. And thank you.
By the way, Helen, on number 5, I have a bill in Albany already.
You can take down the proposals. Thank you.
Yeah. Helen, I have a bill in Albany already on the last one. Can you hear me?
We're having to grapple with, as educators, parents and children, what we have to face every day, as you were able to hear the parents. So we ask you as to challenge the many challenges that we have, that with the BOE and the elected officials not hearing our concerns and enforcing our issues, to please explain and share on A, B, and C. A being the fact that what are the steps that we can take in amending the New York State and New York City charter, and how do we add proposals to the ballot that the voters can vote on? If you would like, you can answer each one of them, or I can read them all. What's your preference, Senator?
Let's do it one by one. Is that okay?
Can't hear you, so.
Can you hear me?
No.
I'm not muted.
Go ahead.
I'm not muted.
Okay, so go ahead. So B is, are you willing to lead the charge to support CEFT in writing legislation that will pass among your colleagues to support changes in the New York State and New York City charter on behalf of CEFT that's advocating for the parents and children's lives each day?
Absolutely.
C, will you work with us to mobilize the residents and your constituents to remove the stigma and restore hope? Thank you, Senator.
Absolutely. I like the initiatives on the back of the ballot. People forget sometimes that are sending them in on early voting without checking that. One of the provisions in the ballot on the back about increasing the amount of money that you can sue for in civil court. Doesn't seem like that it's something so big, but it really is. First of all, it's a bill that I have in Albany to increase that amount, but you need a constitutional amendment before you can change it because the number is set by the Constitution. But 25 to 50,000 means that if you're going to sue someone or get for $50,000, you're still going to pay only $40 for an index, $45 for an index number. If you keep it at the current level, anything above the 25,000, then you have to spend $210 for an index number. So that increases the cost of litigation. Whereas if you increase the threshold to 50,000, then you pay less for an index number. So But all the other initiatives are something that I support, and I've encouraged my constituents and people who ask me about them to vote in favor of them. Look, I'll do whatever it takes to improve the lives of my constituents, and all these initiatives will certainly advocating and raising awareness to the people that I represent and beyond the people that I represent is something that I take seriously. And I will work with you, Helen, or anyone else that wants to work with me on this initiative and getting the word out.
We kindly thank you, and that will be working with Farah and the CEFT group. And of course, anything that you need my support on, you got it.
And you can have your meetings here periodically if you'd like as well.
Thank you so much, Senator, because we have to revamp the DOE, and a lot of that has to be done through legislation. So we would really like your support in putting forward those bills. Teach us how to write them, send them to you to sponsor them and put them on the floor, whatever that it is. Because Ms. Hines over here is teaching us how to find ways to put things on the ballot. So we have no idea what she's talking about, but we're willing to learn.
Ms. Hines is a great ally to have working with you. She's politically savvy. She knows how to get things done. So you got a good team player on that team, and I'll be one of your substitutes if you need me.
Thank you so much. So now we're at the point where we can start closing statements, but there are some questions. I don't know, at least one question that was asked 3 times. I don't know if you would like to answer that. I don't know if you can see it.
There are several questions.
Maybe some comments in the chat as well.
Let me see. Do you have any, I see statements. I'm looking for any particular question. There was a statement about an IEP. Lack equals to lack of focus, trauma, and lack of learning.
So I see a question. Carla, can you see the question? Can you read it for us, please? By Atina Bazan, I think, or Bazan. Do you see it?
Let me
go ahead, Benga. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't see my screen. You know, I'm blind as a bat.
Okay. She wrote I think okay, I'll read the first one. What specifically are you doing, Senator, beyond co-sponsoring S7381 that Senator John Liu has put forward in order to ensure testing is done accurately, robustly, and randomly? Many schools reported will test only specific cohorts and classes as to avoid many classroom and school closures. How will you specifically address this behavior?
Remember that the DOE is its own agency, and me as a state senator, what I can do is either through legislation, which is one of the things that I'm co-sponsoring with Senator Liu, but also behind the scenes, we reach out quite often to the chancellor, to the deputy chancellor, to all of the reps that work with DOE, and also with members of the union. We reach out to all of these entities to try to impact the way things are done at the DOE and for our schools here. The other thing that I do that I try to do every time and every year is with respect to the budget. You know, I fight like hell to make sure that kids in my community get quality education. To do that, we have to have the money. You know, New York State spends more money per pupil than any other state in the union. And that should be reflected in the graduation rates. It should be reflected in the achievement rates. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that, especially in communities of color. Over here in the Bronx, where I represent the 32nd district, on a good year, we get about 68% graduation rate. Barely 70 sometimes, on a good year. Yet in more affluent neighborhoods, that rate is anywhere between 85 and 90. You go to a place like Texas, that spends less money. The students that come from communities of color there are doing much better than the students here. So we have to look at all of this stuff and see why is it that we are doing less, yet we spend more money per pupil in the city of New York. And it's a very complicated question, but what I do is I advocate for more money, and I advocate behind the scenes to make our educational system much better and leaner.
If I may speak, Farah?
Yes, as long as the senator is not in a hurry, I guess 2 minutes or less.
Okay.
Senator, it's been long life understanding. If you listen to the parents, the money doesn't reflect what they're receiving. So somewhere, is it mismanagement of funds? The reason that, and I don't want you to answer this really, is it mismanagement of funds that's prohibiting the problem or the teachers from being instructing the students? Because I hear that from some teachers that the problem that they're having is that their paperwork comes before teacher.
Yeah. It's a complicated problem. It's the bureaucracy, it's the union, it's a lot of different entities. Sarah, Farrah, unfortunately, I have to break away right now.
Okay,
I've got an emergency call that I have to attend to.
Right, the closing statement that it will only take 2 minutes, I promise you, and that will be delivered by Carmen Feliciano.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Carmen Feliciano will deliver the closing statement in like 2 minutes. That's all.
Okay.
Go ahead,
All right.
Carmen, hurry up.
Okay. My name is Carmen Feliciano, parent of students of an elementary and high school. Thank you, Mr. Supporter, for joining and listening to the concerns of parents. I hope what you have heard tonight will encourage you to take action and support Senator Louise' legislation to give us a remote option. It is our desire and our vision to work with elected officials to offer a remote option to families who need and want it, and to implement a better remote learning option than last year. It is our desire and vision to work with elected officials and education stakeholders across the city to reimagine how education is delivered to our children, reimagine how the DOE operates so that the education in the city is truly inclusive and equitable. And in this new vision of shared governance, it is crucial that our parents, children, community, and education stakeholders be at the table decision and policy making. It is important that the voices of the parents are heard because of our children are being forced back into the schools with little to no concerns for their safety, leaving parents to wonder about their welfare and structure of the school settings. We know that the DOE cannot possibly believe that it is properly educating our children with all the challenges we are facing with this inefficient and badly executed reopening that includes shortage of staff, a total disregard for COVID in mitigations, and see violence in our schools, increase anxiety in everyone, and all the other issues we heard here tonight. And it's not the first time that DOE has been completely careless with the education of our lives, of our children. But we do not want to be in the very last time, which is why the DOE must be checked and balanced at every level. The DOE must be forced to account and be transparent to everyone, but above all, to all parents and the community, policymakers. We are looking forward to working with you to enact the vision and dismantle mayoral control through parent and community empowerment, civil engagement, and the powered use of our political authority. In the case of the remote option, we are counting on you to pursue the governor to call the state, the legislator to back for a special session to pass Senator Liu legislation for her to mandate a remote option through an executive order, remote option for our students and families now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen. And I don't know, Senator, or if somebody who would like to speak on your behalf to, I guess, deliver final words.
Hi, Farah. It's Joanna, the Chief of Staff to the Senator. How are you guys? Thank you guys all so much for sharing all of your concerns and thoughts. I have been taking avid notes throughout the duration of the meeting, so I will be following up on the Senator's behalf on any of the follow-up that needs to be taken care of. But I did just want to say he had to step out really quickly, but on his behalf, thank you so much to the Bronx New York City Coalition for educating families together, for putting this together. It's an important conversation for the Senator, and I can echo in his regard that this is something that he cares about deeply. So I intend to make sure that we remain in communication. And Farah, I have your contact, you have mine as well. So I hope that we can continue the conversation moving forward.
Thank you so much. And we as well, we thank everyone here, yourself, the Senator and his team, and everyone on our team and all our attendees for joining this important roundtable with Senator Sepúlveda on behalf of the New York City Coalition for Educating Families Together. Have a great night. Good night, everyone. Thank you. See you all on the
Good night, everyone. Thank
Farah,
you.
you're muted. Tell them about the next session.
Good night.
Oh, wow. I did say all of.
You're muted.
You're muted on purpose. Good night, everyone.